Acura has updated the Acura TLX for 2024, and I think it's a great update for the simple reason that they essentially didn't do any changes to the design. It's already a fantastic looking sedan, and thankfully Acura are still selling sedans, and I think this is one of the best looking out there. So what we're going to do in this video is I'm going to show you the tiny changes that happen in the front end and also the interior. The interior used to be very cool. It had everything that I want in the interior, but I think they stepped it up just a little bit with this interior that we have here in the 2024 model. And we're also going to have a look at the design front, side, and rear. I'm going to compare it to the concept because I think the concept of 2019 was very, very special and had some more dynamic feeling to it. More on that later. But first of all, let's have a look at this article from Car and Driver. Let's get to know this 2024 Acura TLX a little better. So the attractive sports sedan is back for 2024 with more standard features and a glittery new grille. However, you can barely see any differences in this grille. I'm going to show you exactly what is new here in Photoshop. So the redesigned front fascia is the biggest news for this model year. I think the interior is a little bit bigger news than the changes that they made here. There's also a quieter cabin and larger dash and infotainment display. A focus on what Acura says its customer like the most. That's what they changed for 2024. The sedan's big, elegant exterior design and well-stocked larder of interior feature. I'm not sure what larder means. Never heard of that word before. Frameless grills you have in the front end, and you also have additional color options, this one being one of these new colors. So for 2024, the technology package is now standard, and the A-Spec and Type S models round out the offerings, both with all-wheel drive for these two top models, while the base model you can have that either in all-wheel drive or front-wheel drive. So we talked about this new grille. You have the A-Spec TLX right here with these big spider web feeling that we have in the grille. You also have a tighter pattern for the Type S, which we're gonna have a look at later on as well. So the Type S also has full surround camera. You can get this as an option for the lesser specs or the lower specs. The TLX and the A-Spec get 19-inch split 5-spoke wheel in dark gray, which I think looks great, while the Type S gets 20 inches wheels in shiny black. Why are we continuing this trend with black wheels? Because look at it when it's rolling like this. It's just a black hole here. You can't see any spoke design. I mean, you couldn't do that even if it was silver, but at least it shows something here when you're rolling, and specifically when you're standing still from a side view. I want to appreciate the spoke designs of the wheels and the wheel designers. When you have it in black, it just melts into the background. You can't see it. However, you do have the option for copper 20-inch wheels, and you can guess which one I would pick. You also have a carbon fiber option is available for the rear spoiler, and two fresh paint colors make their way to the TLX. The new shade Urban Gray Pearl, this one right here, this is probably the one I would go, maybe with the bronze wheels or copper wheels. Not sure what that would look like. I would need to see that in person to see if that actually matches, but I think it would look pretty cool. And you also have the darker liquid carbon metallic. You have the same engines as 2023, so the base spec has a 2-liter, putting out 272 horsepower and 280 pound-feet of torque, while the top trim gets a 3-liter V6 with 355 horsepower, 354 pound-feet of torque. All of these are connected to a 10-speed automatic. Now, this is the interior. I think this is an absolutely great interior, and I'm going to let you know exactly why when we jump into that section. So you have red or black leather interior. I do think this red one looks great as well, adding some color into this otherwise very black interior. You also have some red trim pieces going on right here in the dash. And you also have a 12.3-inch digital gauge cluster now and a 12.3-inch infotainment screen. The rear passengers now get charging ports, and a wireless charging pad is standard on all models. So with that said, let's jump in to Photoshop. Let's see what's new here. It's very hard to see when it comes to design what is actually new with the Acura TLX. It was already a very beautiful looking design. That is way too thick. So let's make that a little thinner like that. What I like about this design is the proportions. If you look at the original concept from 2019, that had some very nice proportions, specifically the stance. It was properly stanced on the ground, and a little bit of that was lost in the production version. But I do like the styling that we have in the front end, because we do have a clearly separated bumper here. Maybe it's a little too thin in this area to be considered a proper bumper, but the line flow in here looks fantastic. And we have this big intake right here on the side. And what I like about this styling is the dynamic feeling all over. Look at this chamfer here, for example, going from thin into thicker as we go closer to the base. And this happens all over this front end. So I want to go into more of a detail of the front end to show you exactly what is new here with the 2024 model. Up top, we have the 2023 model. Down low, we do have the 2024. The biggest change here is the grille. So look at the grille here on the 2023. We do have this framing for it. So we have an outline framing for the overall grille. You can see this piece right here. This is what I'm talking about. And this is now gone in the 2024. And I do think it looks a lot better just removing that framing around the outline of the grille and just have it, the mesh kind of clash into the bodywork. It looks a lot cleaner. And another detail that is changed here is you can see how they implemented the radar in the 2023 model right here. It looks pretty, I wouldn't call it sloppy, but you can definitely see that there is something added there. It looks a little weird because we have this big plastic piece. Even though they extended, as you can see, the mesh from the grille is now extended onto this radar piece to kind of melt it in together a little better. But in the new one, they definitely improved this because you can barely see that there is a radar back here, but there is, in fact, behind the Acura logo is still the radar. And you can see that their logo itself right here is a little bit bigger than what it was in the 2023 model here, and this being the Type S. Here you can see the more complex and the more tight mesh that we have in the Type S compared to the, as I showed you up here, the regular version of the Type S has a much bigger holes in it up here and less defined, while in the Type S it gets a lot tighter in the grille. But I also wanted to throw in the concept because I want to show you the what was sort of lacking in the production version. You can see just how similar the concept is to the production version. I do think Acura did a great job turning the concept into a production, but something was lost here, and I think it has to do with the headlights and the daytime run lights, because if you look at the production version, it's essentially one single thickness in this LED, and in the concept, they added some juicy different thicknesses to the LED right here. You can see just how thick it is on the side, creating more of a movement and more of an interesting approach to the headlight design in general. But other than that, it looks pretty much identical to the production version. The only difference here, again, if you look at it from example from a 3/4 rear view, you're gonna see that the stance is a lot better on the concept. But I do think you can achieve that stance on the production version if you just add maybe some spacers, lower it an inch or so. So with that said, let's go back to this design and have a look at the side view and these beautiful proportions of the TLX. We have this long line in the body cutting in here, going into the front end, and then coming back in this chamfer that we talked about right here. So we have one line that is connected all across the entire body of the car, from this area going through the top of the front axle and then dipping down into the taillight right here. And then have a look at the hood here, just how long this is. We rarely see these type of proportions in today's cars. This definitely has the internal combustion engine proportions, meaning that the A-pillar now goes straight down into the center of the front axle. We have a properly defined hood, which we need to have if we're gonna fit an internal combustion under there. And then we also have this line at the bottom carving out some of this volume at the very low section, and a very clean roofline with a sort of clearly defined trunk in the back. Now looking at the rear end here, and we have the new color, this cement gray color, whatever it was called, I can't really remember. Same thing here, properly designed taillights with some dynamic features in it, but it still lacks the daytime LED lights in the rear like we had in the concept, because the concept again had a lot thicker LED right here in the side, and then he went into a thinner one, kind of fading in into a very sharp corner in this area. Here it still looks good, but it doesn't look as good as the concept. And I'm not sure why Acura didn't implement some different thicknesses in the LEDs, because I think the rest of the body of this car is so dynamic that I want to have more of that into the key graphics as well, such as the front and rear lights. But we still have 4 proper bazooka tailpipes down here. You can see they're rounded on the Type S, looking great. We also have a diffuser with these winglets integrated, looking super sporty and very nice. I do think this is still pretty properly planted, but again, you can improve this by just pushing these out 1/2 inch and lower the ride height 1/2 inch as well. That will definitely properly plant this, just like we had in the concept. Last but not least, the new interior. The biggest change here is of course the 12.3-inch infotainment screen, which is brand new, this section here. Another detail that is new is this completely digital gauge cluster. What I like that Acura did here is they didn't change the hardware of the interior, which was already perfect. The previous one did have analog tachometer and speedometer, as you can see right here, which is totally fine by me, because you still have a full screen in the middle, which is pretty big in this case, to customize and show you whatever information you need. You can see also we have the smaller screen in this case in the 2023 model year. But look at this section. This is what I want to see in car design. This looks so much more interesting, having all of these buttons instead of having all of this being integrated in the software. Now it feels like the designer put in some effort and some passion into designing this car, and still having the physical buttons, as you can see, for the climate control settings right here. Exactly what I want to see. We also have, again, a housing for the gauge cluster. Let's go to the new one, because that's the one we're talking about right now. We also have a pretty decently designed steering wheel with the red stitching on the inside. Flat bottom steering wheel, still leather wrapped. The controls for this looks like the cruise control settings right there. And then you have the controls probably for this menu right here is for the digital gauge cluster. But again, the hardware is not changed. We still have, in the 2024 model of Acura, we still have the physical buttons and for the climate control setting, beautifully integrated in this nicely designed interior. And I think Acura is one of these brands that still holds on to this old tradition of designing interiors, but they're adding some new technology in there, which is totally fine, because you can still, for example, make the gauge cluster look like it is completely analog. And overall, I think this is a great refresh of the TLX. They didn't have to do much, but the changes that they did makes a huge difference.